Hello friends, today we'll look into another item from Effective Java. This is regarding documenting the exceptions thrown by APIs. So as we saw in the previous items, our APIs can throw checked or unchecked exceptions. So whenever we throw an exception, we need to document those exceptions in the Java doc. So Josh has dedicated a separate item for explaining documenting the exceptions. That says a lot about importance of documenting the exceptions. So let's try to understand this by seeing some of the APIs from Java itself. So in this ArrayList class, we have add method. So add method is throwing an exception, which is unchecked exception, right? So this exception needs to be documented. As you can see here in the documentation, we are saying index out of bound exception if the index is out of range. So basically we are explaining in what all cases this exception might be thrown. So similarly we are documenting other exceptions. Since this Java doc is inheriting from abstract list, so we are seeing all this documentation. So to document any exception, we need to use the add throws clause in the Java doc. Let's see another example. So here we are throwing a checked exception, IO exception. So that exception is also documented. So probably it would have been more descriptive here, but in your API you need to specify in what conditions this checked exception might be thrown. So as we saw in the previous item, checked exception might be thrown where the caller can recover from those conditions by handling it appropriately. Unchecked exceptions are thrown where some preconditions fail and they give a kind of a hint where he has to satisfy some preconditions before calling the API. For checked exceptions, we need to define it using the throws clause in the method definition. For documentation, it is very much similar to unchecked exception. We have to use the add throws in the Java doc. So basically we need to use the add throws clause to document either of checked or unchecked. For checked, we need to explicitly define it in the method definition. Over the time, as the API evolves, we might be throwing new unchecked exceptions, or we might be reducing the number of exceptions which are thrown. So, but the Java doc gives a kind of a hint to the consumer of the API what all kinds of conditions he needs to handle before calling the API. In some cases, you want to document same exceptions for each method for most of the methods which are thrown by the class. In those cases, to avoid the repetition of the same thing, you can document those at the class level. For example, in the array list, as you can see here, so in some cases concurrent modification exception will be thrown. So that is documented at the class level. So in summary, we need to document the checked and unchecked exceptions using the add throws. Also, checked exceptions needs to be explicitly defined using the throws clause in the method definition, as we saw here. So we have to define the checked exceptions using the throws clause. So we need not define using throws clause for the unchecked exception. Hope this is useful. We will see in the next item. Thank you.